You got a guy cut in half, literally cut in half. This is probably the most blood I've ever seen.
On June 10, 2018, a concerned friend attempted her routine check-in on 76-year-old Robert Sharp, but couldn't reach him after multiple tries. Growing worried, she called 911 and asked the dispatcher to send someone to check on him. Immediately, police rushed to Robert Sharp's home in Ann Arbor, where they were confronted with a horrifying scene. Robert was brutally murdered. His body was cut in half, partially burned, and found concealed beneath a pile of scorched belongings.
I'd been a detective over 25 years, close to 30 years, and I had a couple really bloody crime scenes, but this was bad.
In today's episode, we explore the harrowing murder case in Ann Arbor, where a respected senior was killed in his own home in the most brutal way imaginable. But before we begin, make sure to like and subscribe to stay updated on our latest true crime stories. Robert Sharp was a 76-year-old retired chemistry professor who had spent most of his life teaching at the University of Michigan. He was known for his sharp mind and deep passion for his work, earning respect from both colleagues and students alike. After retiring, Robert settled in Ann Arbor, where he enjoyed a peaceful life. He was often described as kind, easygoing, and deeply devoted to his family. Even in retirement, he remained active, working on personal projects and spending quality time with loved ones. Robert Sharp had a close circle of friends, and after his wife passed away, one of them made a habit of checking on him regularly. On the evening of June 10, 2018, she called Robert as usual, but he didn't answer. Her concern grew as her calls kept going straight to strange voicemails. Sensing something was wrong, she called 911. Little did she know that this call would lead to a devastating discovery.
Hello, where's your emergency? I'm at my friend's house. I checked in on him earlier today, did not find him around, and then this evening when I called his home phone, it said the voicemail wasn't set up, but it had been set up, but now there's no voicemail set up. Do you want us to come into the house and check on it and like check the voicemail on the person? Okay, what's his name? His name is Robert. And how old is he? 76. So I was leaving the house, and as I was driving past, I noticed that the paper was still on the front porch, and the door is a little bit open, so I'm not going in the house.
After that 911 call, police rushed to the 200 block of Alpine Drive in Ann Arbor. When they arrived, they found the door unlocked, and the house was in complete darkness. There was no sign of Robert, but there's a strong smell of smoke that immediately caught their attention. Fearing an active fire and the risk of an explosion, they hesitated and called the fire department. When firefighters arrived and entered the house, they uncovered something far more disturbing than they expected. Peering through a broken basement window, officers spotted a hand lying on the floor. They forced their way inside and found Robert Sharp lying dead on the floor. His body was covered in stab wounds and severed in half. His remains were partially burned, hidden beneath a pile of scorched belongings. The gruesome scene suggested the killer had tried to set him on fire, but the flames had died out. This explained the lingering smoke and odor the police had noticed earlier.
You got a guy cut in half, literally cut in half, and he's got a bunch of like clothing and newspaper on top of him where they tried to burn him up, but the fire smoldered out. This is probably the most blood I've ever seen.
Moving further into the house, they reached the kitchen, where they were confronted with even more horrors. Dried blood was splattered everywhere, and drag marks, led from the kitchen to the basement, indicating the murder had occurred hours earlier. Besides discovering Robert's lifeless body, the police found that several of Robert's personal items, including laptops and electronics, were missing from the house. The scene showed clear signs of a struggle, and with several valuable items missing, investigators suspected that a break-in and robbery had occurred, which ultimately escalated into violence. Outside, they searched the parking area and found several trash cans lined up, suggesting someone had deliberately disposed of evidence. They also found a note on the fence stating that someone had borrowed Robert's wheelbarrow and would visit him later that night. Given the note and the violent nature of the attack, the police considered another possibility. They suspected the confrontation turned violent, possibly involving a neighbor or someone with a grudge against Robert. After thoroughly searching the house and gathering all available evidence, the police quickly launched a detailed investigation to rule out potential suspects. They first interviewed Robert's friend, who had already been at the crime scene. Although she was the one who alerted the authorities, the police didn't rule out any possibilities. In the front yard of Robert's property, the friend explained in detail about what had happened that led her to make the emergency call. She said, "I came by earlier, and his car wasn't here, and I hadn't heard from him. So I thought, well, I'll give a call to the house. I called to the house, and it says the voicemail isn't set up. I said, well, let me drive by, and so I came by tonight. When I left, I started down the road, and I said, well, what's that on the porch? Well, I came back around, and it was his New York Times and a priority mail package. His New York Times is like, just see, and the door is cracked. I mean, the door is open about that." The police then shared the horrific details of Robert's death. Upon hearing the news, she broke down in tears, visibly shaken by the loss of her friend. Through her tears, she agreed to cooperate fully with the investigation, sharing important details about Robert. She stated that Robert had no family in the area and only a few close friends. Robert was a retired professor who had been trying to organize and clean his house since his wife passed away. When asked about her passing, she confirmed that Robert's wife had died on April 20th. Robert's friend also revealed that she had known the couple for 25 years and often helped them out. She then went on to share that Robert used to visit a Wendy's every day with his wife. But since her death, he continued going alone. He would always take his laptop and a bag, and people at the restaurant knew him very well. While questioning Robert's friend, the police also looked into the mysterious note. They tracked down the neighbor who had left it. She explained that she had borrowed a wheelbarrow from Robert a few days earlier and planned to return it. However, she hadn't seen him recently, so she left the note to try to contact him. Eventually, the detectives ruled out the neighbor as a suspect. To gather more information about Robert, the police contacted his only son, David Sharp. His son was devastated by the news, but he and his wife still shared important details about Robert's life and daily routine. David said that his father was a remarkable man. Robert had skipped grades to attend MIT at just 15 and continued his pursuit of knowledge throughout his life, even after retiring. David also mentioned how his parents had met thanks to his father's eccentric Aunt Helen. Robert had a tender habit of reading to his wife every night before bed. Like Robert's friend, David confirmed that his father regularly visited Wendy's. It had been a comforting part of his routine and a connection to his late wife. When asked if he knew of anyone who might have had a troubled relationship with his father, David couldn't think of anyone who would want to harm him. This led the detectives to focus even more on the connection to Wendy's, believing it might hold crucial information. They visited the outlet, but the staff only remembered Robert as a kind and gentle man. Unfortunately, they had no additional details to provide. The investigation stalled for a while, but the detectives soon uncovered a crucial clue that Robert had left behind before his death. On June 6, just 5 days before his murder, Robert had called 911 to report a break-in at his home. According to the police report, Robert returned home that day to find his house ransacked, particularly a drawer where he kept his keys and personal items. The back door, which he thought was locked when he left earlier, was found unlocked.
You went inside, and then what did you notice? You can go ahead and show me.
It was open. And so then, right inside that cupboard, I have a drawer where I normally put my car keys, I put my billfold and that kind of thing in. I went inside the drawer where I do that, and it had obviously been rummaged through. Everything was in a different position and moved around.
Can you show me where that drawer is at?
Yeah. This is where my keys would hang.
Okay.
I had one of those little two sticks, and that I don't see.
Despite the apparent burglary, some items, like his credit cards and wallet, remained untouched, while others, including his Roku boxes and car keys, were missing. Strange enough, even though Robert's car keys were missing, his car remained in the driveway. When the police searched the house that day, they found no clear evidence or suspects related to the break-in, leaving the case unsolved at the time. However, due to the case's unusual circumstances, detectives believed the break-in could be linked to Robert's murder. It was then that they shifted their focus to a criminal who had recently been arrested multiple times for home invasions in the area. When the man was brought in for questioning about the retired professor's murder, he claimed to know nothing about the case, but insisted he had an intriguing lead. He said he had met a person near the crime scene who was desperately trying to sell a Mac computer. After the interrogation, the police couldn't link him to the murder or the home invasion, so they ruled him out as a potential killer. However, they believed that the person he mentioned could be connected to Robert's home invasion and even murder. Before the police could identify the potential prime suspect, they received Robert's autopsy report. It revealed that he had died from 28 sharp force wounds, including both stabs and slashes, with a fatal cut to his carotid artery, causing severe bleeding. Additionally, there were signs of post-mortem burning. All of this pointed to a killer driven by rage, and the police believed it was likely someone who knew Robert personally. After months of investigation, the police uncovered a key lead that brought them closer to identifying the suspect. In another interview with David, Robert's son, the police learned that in May 2018, Robert's Apple laptop went missing at Wendy's. Despite efforts of the employees, it was never recovered. The police re-examined the surveillance footage from Wendy's that day, but nothing seemed suspicious. They then reviewed the staff list to check backgrounds of the employees working around the time Robert's laptop went missing. Surprisingly, they discovered an employee named Isam Hamilton, who was on parole at the time. Despite his long criminal record, this 29-year-old was hired to work at Wendy's in early 2018, just months after being released from prison in November 2017. He had been incarcerated for assaulting a police officer, possession of a dangerous weapon, and arson. It was odd that no one suspected him of stealing Robert's laptop. But with his criminal history now uncovered, Hamilton quickly became the main focus of the investigation. Tracking Hamilton's activities on the day of Robert's murder, the police found him on surveillance footage from a Speedway gas station at Carpenter Road and Packard Street. In the footage around 2 a.m., Hamilton was seen entering a location with 2 backpacks. His pants had dark brown stains, which appeared to be blood, possibly wiped off quickly after the murder. When he opened one of the backpacks, the camera revealed Roku devices that had been stolen from the crime scene. With this clear evidence, the detectives quickly began searching for him. But despite their efforts, his whereabouts remained unknown. The authorities then contacted Hamilton's grandmother, who lived with him at the time. During questioning, she shared some troubling details that eventually helped the police piece everything together. She explained that Hamilton had been staying with her since the end of February. During the time he was working at Wendy's, she saw him with an Apple computer. It seemed odd to her, given his financial struggles, he couldn't afford something like that.
I just thought, I said, well, maybe he might have bought a computer for that money. And I know those apples are quite expensive, and I know he wasn't making enough money to buy an apple.
She also noticed other suspicious items, such as an Apple phone. When she asked about it, he claimed he had bought it and planned to sell it. Additionally, she spotted 3 Roku boxes, which she suspected were stolen. The detective then asked if she'd seen anything unusual on the night of the murder, and Hamilton's grandma recalled him coming home late one night with blood on his pants.
Like this kind of rough stuff, and I'm like, well, what happened to you? I didn't get her. I said, where did blood come from?
She then described the bloodstains as mostly on his pants from the knee down, matching what was seen in the surveillance footage. When asked about the time she saw her grandson come home with the stained jeans, she estimated it was around 2 weeks ago, sometime around midnight. Her statement, combined with the blood stains, led the detectives to quickly obtain a search warrant for her apartment in Ypsilanti. There, they discovered the damning evidence they had been searching for, bringing them closer to solving the case. At Hamilton's grandmother's house, the police found a pair of pants with blood stains and a backpack containing 2 stolen computers. After checking the serial numbers, they confirmed both belonged to Robert. They also discovered Robert's missing items and more blood-stained clothes. With this solid evidence, Hamilton was arrested on June 27, 2018, and brought in for interrogation. During the interrogation, Hamilton refused to cooperate, stating to remain silent until he had a lawyer. Although the police couldn't get him to confess or extract any information, they still managed to build a clear timeline of events by piecing together all the evidence. Robert was a regular at Wendy's, and Hamilton knew him well. They often talked, and Hamilton learned that Robert was wealthy. Driven by greed, Hamilton started following Robert, tracking his activities, and even visiting his house. Over time, he noticed the valuable items inside. After Robert's wife passed away, Hamilton saw an opportunity, thinking Robert would be an easy target. On June 10th, Hamilton entered Robert's house, expecting him to be away. To his surprise, Robert was home. Before Robert could react, Hamilton grabbed a knife from the butcher's block and fatally stabbed him on the kitchen floor. He then dragged Robert's body to the basement. Down there, Hamilton dismembered Robert's body and set it on fire in an attempt to destroy the evidence. However, the fire failed to conceal the crime, and with no other choice, Hamilton fled the scene. By this point, the police dug deeper into Hamilton's twisted mindset to understand what would drive someone to kill over something as trivial as theft. They discovered that in 2012, Hamilton was convicted for a similar home invasion, where he threatened a university professor with a gun and nearly killed him. Further investigation revealed that Hamilton had his own method of breaking in and robbing homes. To avoid leaving prints behind, he wore gloves while breaking into homes when the owners were away, stealing electronics and leaving with the items in a bag. This explained why no fingerprints or DNA were found at Robert's house. Since Hamilton had no history of mental illness or substance abuse, the police concluded that his actions were driven purely by greed. The case they built against Hamilton was strong. However, there was one piece of evidence preventing them from directly tying him to Robert's murder: the bloodstains on his pants. To their shock, forensic testing revealed that the DNA did not match Robert's. As a result, they were only able to link Hamilton to the burglary, not the murder. However, the police didn't have to wait long to seal Hamilton's fate, as multiple pieces of evidence quickly came to light. A friend of his came forward, stating she had seen him walking toward Ann Arbor on the night of June 10th. After a brief conversation, they parted ways, and a few days later, he offered her a Roku streaming device, which she declined. The police tracked Robert's credit card, which had been found near his feet at the crime scene. They discovered several failed transactions made around 12:30 a.m. on the night of the murder. The records showed that these transactions were linked to Hamilton. It appeared he owned 2 phones, one used to create a Square account and the other to attempt transferring money from Robert's credit card to his own account. However, the transaction failed because Hamilton mistakenly tried to use a credit card instead of a debit card. This evidence indicated he attempted to use Robert's credit card shortly after the murder. FBI agents further analyzed Hamilton's phone data and confirmed he was within 80 meters of Robert's house during the crime. Meanwhile, Robert had recently bought a new laptop to replace the one stolen at Wendy's. He used it to video chat with his son on the evening of the murder. However, the laptop was missing from the crime scene. Shortly after, surveillance footage from the morning after showed Hamilton at the Apple store in Briarwood Mall, where he attempted to erase the laptop's hard drive. This helped confirm Hamilton's involvement in the crime. With overwhelming circumstantial evidence, Isom Hamilton was charged with first-degree murder, arson, home invasion, and mutilation of a dead body. However, he insisted on his innocence and protested his arrest.
Told me they went through the scene. None of my prints, none of my DNA was there, and they already took my DNA.
I'm not in a position to argue the case.
So why am I being incarcerated falsely?
During the 4-day trial, the defense argued there was not enough forensic evidence to conclusively connect Hamilton to the murder. They pointed out that neither his DNA nor fingerprints were found in Robert's home, arguing that this weakened the case against him. They also claimed that the prosecution relied too heavily on circumstantial evidence rather than solid proof of Hamilton's involvement. To create doubt, the defense questioned the reliability of the investigative methods used to link him to the murder. Throughout the proceedings, Hamilton showed no remorse, firmly denying the charges, even in front of the victim's family.
I didn't kill nobody. All this is circumstantial. Me being in possession of electronics that I bought off somebody else is just that. All elements were not met at all. I've been prosecuted and convicted solely on the premise of my past subjective opinions.
Despite these efforts, Isom Hamilton was convicted after testimony from 30 witnesses and the presentation of over 300 pieces of evidence. The court ruled that the circumstantial evidence was strong enough to find him guilty of first-degree murder, armed robbery, first-degree arson, and mutilation of a dead body. Evaluating the brutality of the crime, he was sentenced to life in prison without any possibility of parole.
Your selfish, violent, and senseless acts have brought anguish, fear, and suffering to many. Nothing can bring back the life that's been lost. But you have proven yourself to be the highest danger to society, and you cannot be trusted with freedom again.
At last, justice was served for Robert's loved ones, offering the closure they deserved. But it did little to ease the deep pain of those left behind. The verdict could not undo the tragedy or fill the void of Robert's absence. The grief remained, and only time could begin to fade the horror of what had happened. Hopefully, in the end, Robert Sharp would be remembered not for the way he was taken, but for his kind heart and brilliant mind. That brings us to the end of today's episode. What are your thoughts on this case? Let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe for more true crime stories. Until next time, stay safe.